Hey, it's Marley from the Energy Boutique with your energy forecast for Thursday, August 5th. So the moon is going to be in Cancer all day. And as we've been discussing, the moon is at its most powerful energy, most intense energy while in Cancer. So you best believe that our feels are going to be turned all the way up. Volume is all the way up on how sensitive we are, how hypersensitive we are, connecting to our own energy, our own emotions, those emotions and energies of people around us and our environment. That it is highly recommendable when the moon is in Cancer that we retreat from putting ourselves out in the world, being around a lot of people, so that we can kind of move inward, get our energy and emotions in check, and really just enforce those boundaries so that we're not taking other people's energy on. We have 9 different moon aspects taking place today out of 10. And we're still in the surrendering process, recognizing that the old energy has to come up in order for us to feel it, in order for us to heal it, in order for us to acknowledge it so that we can let it go. We are very, very close to the new moon window, to that Lionsgate portal taking place on 8/8. And typically speaking, the days prior to the new moon are intense. They're a little bit dark. Why? Because we have to strip away all of the ugliness, all of the heaviness, all of the darkness, so that we know what we don't want to experience anymore, creating a beautiful framework for us to plant new seeds of intentions under the new moon. So we are going to continue to kind of struggle with the ebb and flow of taking 1 step forward in enlightenment and then 2 steps back into the darkness. Again, this whole purpose is to allow those darker frequencies, those darker emotions and thoughts to be unearthed within us and rise to the surface in order for the sun to get a good look at them and burn them away. So right out of the gate, Mercury in Leo bumps into Venus in Virgo. This is going to be a beautiful energy for us to be a little bit more expressive, especially with our emotions. Yes, there's a little bit of a separation between our heart and our head right now, but the only way to kind of bridge that gap is to talk about it. First, the inner dialogue with ourselves. Second, with those that need to hear it. We have to remember that Mercury is in Leo, making us very bold, very courageous, very confident in order to speak up, to speak our truth, to tell our story, to really express ourselves fully. And Venus, who is in Virgo, she's trying to restructure and reorganize her thoughts, her feelings, her values, her worthiness. And realistically, this Virgo energy is a beautiful thing in order to provide solutions to some problems. But we have to kind of learn how to express ourselves with confidence, with clarity, within ourselves. Let your heart, let your head have this discussion first. And then, of course, if the universe presents you with an opportunity to speak your truth and tell your story to those that really need to hear it, by all means, go ahead. With the moon in Cancer, we're speaking very authentically. We're really speaking with a lot of empathy and understanding. And this is exactly what we need right now to kind of reconcile, first of all, the divide within ourselves and some relationships that we do know we want to keep around, we do want to pour into, we do want to nurture, but we're still not on the same page. There is a dialogue that has to be opened up, and we have to have that heart to heart in order to gain perspective and understanding on where it is that the relationship is and where it is that we want it to go. So the moon in Cancer is going to be bumping into Saturn retrograde in Aquarius. This is where we are kind of impressed with ourselves. We had that inner dialogue, or we had that communication, that conversation outside of ourselves that was very needed. And we are proud for bossing up. We are proud for speaking our truth. We are proud of basically just being raw and vulnerable enough to recognize where in us we've been creating a block, either by keeping our thoughts and our feelings to ourselves or just not recognizing that we have to be a little bit more raw and vulnerable with the people that we love, with the relationships that we want to continue to grow and nurture. So this particular aspect is going to help us really see where it is we've bossed up, where it is that we are now responsible and accountable for our own thoughts, our own feelings, and then the action that we put behind and actually bringing our truth to life. This is really going to impress ourselves. It's going to validate for us that we are moving on in the right direction. We do have what we need, what it takes within us in order to resolve a lot of the emotional and mental discord and disconnection, detachments that we've been going through and we've been suffering under. Now, the moon in Cancer sextiles Mars in Virgo. This is a beautiful energy as well because it means that we're willing to take action, to do something to really help express ourselves to the fullest. This is like we're acting on our feels. We have to remind ourselves, though, that Mars, a fire energy, the god of war who just wants to act first and think later, he's in Virgo right now. That means that he's not making any actions unless it is 100% strategic and calculated. If it is not going to solve a problem, it is not worth speaking on or acting on. But this is going to lend us that courage, that passion, that excitement that we need to feel in order to push ourselves forward on this path that is very unfamiliar and really uncomfortable for us. But we're going to get some help because the moon in Cancer is going to bump into Venus in Virgo as well. This is going to help us stabilize, ground our energy, really kind of bring us down, recognize where it is that we're at, how it is we're thinking, how it is that we're feeling, recognize the problems that still exist, really put our heart and soul into resolving some of these problems. And it might not surprise you to recognize that the problem is ourselves. It lies within our self-worth. We've been really struggling. We've been talking the talk, but right now we're having a hard time walking the walk. We know within us that we have to level up. We've taken small little baby steps to kind of take action and prove that we are looking for change, prove that we're looking to level up, prove that we're looking to take responsibility for our actions and make things happen instead of letting things happen to us. So this is a beautiful energy because the moon then bumps into the true node. And as you know, the true node is our destiny point. It is what we're working towards, where it is that we want to be. And the moon in Cancer bumping into the true node right now kind of recognizes that, you know what, we have been our own blocks. We're the ones preventing our growth. We're the ones preventing the blessings from coming in. So this is going to kind of create a low because we have to rework the past. And again, that moon in Cancer, very attached to the old. Even if the old was uncomfortable, even if the old was toxic, it's familiar. And there's a lot to be said for predicting familiar patterns, even if they're bad ones. And so the moon in Cancer bumping into the true node right now has a lot of inner working to do, inner rewriting, inner re-editing, especially where the past is concerned, bringing us up to this particular point, recognizing that we have taken a few little baby steps to enforce those new boundaries, to really set a different playing field in our relationships as far as how it is that we're going to allow people to treat us. But again, we're starting to see the walls that are still in place, preventing us from truly taking huge steps forward. Now, at this particular time, the moon in Cancer is going to bump into Saturn once again. Now, you might remember earlier on in the day, we kind of had a good chat with Saturn. We kind of recognized where it is we had to take control over our emotions, where it is that we were going to level up, where it is that we were responsible and accountable for how we've allowed things to happen in the past. And that gave us the tough love lesson that we needed to boss up and actually act or speak out, telling our truth, speaking our story, and being heard. This time around, though, this is going to be a little bit of a tension point. It's not going to be as fluid, as comforting, as nurturing as the previous conversation was. This time, Saturn is a little bit harder on us. He wants to show us that, you know what, you're in a tough love learning lesson right now. You're really going to feel that negative narrative shift within us. And a lot of that is, again, because the moon in Cancer wants to go back, wants to reflect, wants to be nostalgic, wants to, just contemplate when times were good or when things were happy or when things were going our way. And that doesn't allow us to shift our focus onto the future, onto the new dream, onto the new vision, on the new realities that we're trying to create. We would rather just take a step back and kind of, just reflect and review it all. Saturn isn't happy with that, especially seeing as we made a little bit of progress earlier on in the day. And now he's a little bit frustrated that, we took one step forward and we took 3 steps back. So he's a little bit harsher on us at this time, really kind of, I'm going to say, speaking in the negative narrative of self-worth, why you're not good enough, why you don't deserve this, why you should be comfortable in staying in the same patterns and habits, why, it's scary to move forward and you're not brave enough to do so. And for most of us, that kind of tough love life lesson is what actually triggers us to make a move and to bust out of our funk. So unfortunately, Saturn's really going to put it to us right now, showing us where it is that we've created the blocks, we've created the restrictions, and that we're right. We are not worthy. We don't deserve happiness. We don't deserve to be treated fairly. Now, when you hear somebody tell you the exact same thing that you tell yourself, it hits different, right? So it's almost like this external validation of all of our fears and our insecurities is what it is that we need to acknowledge at this point in order to make a positive shift. In this moment, the moon in Cancer squares tension point, has a confrontation with Chiron, the wounded healer, who is retrograde in Aries. Now, this conversation is kind of riding off the coattails of the earlier conversation that Saturn just tried to break us down with. And Chiron really wants to pep talk us into healing, into recognizing that, our emotional safety, our emotional security, our emotional stability is totally attainable. But we have to stop telling ourselves that it's not. We have to stop telling ourselves that all of these negative things that Saturn just told us are, our fears, our insecurities, our vulnerabilities, that we're not deserving, that we're not worthy of it. We have to stop that narrative, and things get super extreme. We have to remember that the moon in Cancer is very sensitive, and there is a lot of triggers coming up within us. It's not even happening in our exterior realms at this point. It's not an outside influence that's triggering us. We are literally triggering ourselves. So the moon in Cancer bumps into the sun in Leo, and this just pours a little bit of fuel on the fire. This adds to the inner dialogue, the inner conflict that we're having. It illuminates all of these old patterns, all of these old narratives, all of these old habits that Lord Jesus knows, why can't we just disconnect from? Why, if we know in our mind and we know in our heart space that we have outgrown that, why can't we let it go? Why is the loop still continuing? So we have a lot of pressure building because that pressure needs to break us down. Why do we have to break down? Because that is when we have a breakthrough. Sometimes you need to be sitting at the bottom of the barrel to see a different path forward. And right now, with the moon in Cancer overwhelming us with all of these not so nice thoughts and feelings, we're going to bump into Jupiter, who is retrograde in Aquarius. And of course, Jupiter magnifies everything that we are thinking and feeling. So this is going to add a lot more pressure to the inner conflict, the inner dialogue that we're already having. This is actually going to push us to have an inner argument, if you will, between our heart and our head, because there is this split, this division taking place within us. Our energy is so firmly excited and rooted into the future prospects of all of the dreams and visions that we've been looking to manifest. However, the darker parts of us are still very much rooted in the past, rooted in the familiar, rooted in the uncomfortable toxicity of the narratives, of the ideas, of the emotions that we have let run our lives for far too long. And so the volume needs to be turned all the way up on this because we want more for ourselves. We have needs that we have been ignoring for many, many moons now. And again, like I kind of been suggesting, the moon in Cancer right now is kind of bringing back all of the life lessons that Cancer season brought us, which is where it is we've been too self-sacrificial, giving our own energy away in order to make other people happy, pouring from a half-empty cup into somebody else's cup to make theirs full, when ours never ever reaches that full point. So this is really going to get our narrative in an obsessive loop. We are kind of, like I said, there is a good and bad, a light and dark angel on each one of our shoulders right now, having this argument, pushing and pulling the heart space back and forth, pushing and pulling the narrative back and forth. And just as we reach this breaking point, when we're sitting at the bottom of the barrel in these darker thoughts, these darker vibrations, where the dark forces are 100% winning at this particular point in the day, the moon in Cancer sextiles Uranus in Taurus. This is exactly what we need. This sextile is a good energy. This Uranian energy is that lightning bolt coming from the cosmos into our higher intellect, shifting our focus, shifting our perspective, shifting our narrative, connecting the dots, giving us an aha moment that we can't unknow. Once we have this vision, once this energy actually shifts and we're able to actually see what it is that we need to do for ourselves, because Lord knows we can't sit around waiting for somebody to come save us. We can only stand up and save ourselves. Once we recognize where it is that we have to detach from this old, obsessive, old attachment, old way of thinking and feeling, suddenly we get a little bit rebellious. We want to rebel against our old self, rebel against those dark forces that now we have an awareness of their inner workings. In this split moment of having those two angels kind of bicker back and forth on your shoulders, we recognize from our higher self that the big vision, the big dream, the big goal that we're now trying to pour into requires a lot more space and distance away from the old self, away from the old energy, away from the darker forces that are trying to keep us down and in a holding pattern. This Uranian energy can detach us like no other energy. So all the feels, all those overwhelming thoughts and feelings that, our hypersensitivity for being in a moon in Cancer is putting on of us, suddenly we shift out of it. Suddenly we cut the cord between our heart and our head. We allow our head to take the lead because our head is able to attach to the great grand vision that we are working towards. And our heart needs a little bit of a time out to purge the old and get itself in alignment with the new. So we're definitely going to end Thursday off on a much brighter note than maybe the day started off, but it is preparing us to deep dive into the new moon energies like no other Friday morning.